Betty Ford is being remembered this morning as a courageous First Lady who battled addiction to painkillers and alcohol. She also beat breast cancer. Betty Ford died yesterday in Palm Springs, California. She was 93 years old. CBS Evening News anchor Scott Pelley takes a look back at her remarkable life.
Relatively unknown until her husband became president, Betty Ford became one of the most popular and respected women in America. Born Elizabeth Ann Bloomer on April 8, 1918, she grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. She dreamed of becoming a professional dancer, and after high school, she moved east to study under Martha Graham, the high priestess of modern dance. She earned a spot in Graham's auxiliary dance troupe, but her mother pressured her to leave the group and New York in 1941. She got a job back home in Grand Rapids, performed in her own dance troupe, married and divorced her first husband, and then met a young lawyer named Gerald Ford. They married in 1948, just weeks before Ford was elected to his first term in Congress. Through the 1950s and 60s, they were a traditional and very effective Washington couple. Ford rose to be Republican House Minority Leader, while she stayed in the background and raised their 4 children. Just as they were ready to retire, an accident of history put them in the White House. In 1973, Vice President Spiro Agnew resigned in disgrace, and Gerald Ford was named to replace him. When President Nixon also resigned less than a year later, Gerald Ford became the 38th President of the United States. The new First Lady was not intimidated by the public spotlight.
I told my husband, if we have to go to the White House, okay, I will go. But I'm going as myself, and it's too late to change my pattern. And if they don't like it, then they'll just have to throw me out.
She was vocal about women's issues. She supported the Supreme Court's ruling on Roe v. Wade, which made abortion legal, and she supported the Equal Rights Amendment. She openly discussed her breast cancer and mastectomy.
There are women all over the country like me, and if I don't make this public, then their lives will be gone. They're in jeopardy.
After they left the White House in 1977, Betty Ford faced another health crisis.
My family saw the problem, and they got professional help to come in and help them do what we refer to as an intervention.
She had become addicted to both painkillers and alcohol. After her successful treatment, she opened the Betty Ford Center in Rancho Mirage, California, to treat others with drug and alcohol addiction.
We're very proud of you, Mom.
The couple spent much of the rest of their lives together and out of the public spotlight. But the nation saw her again during the state funeral for former President Ford, her husband of 58 years. Through it all, Betty Ford faced the challenges of life with the grace and poise of a dancer. Scott Pelley, CBS News, New York.
And for a look at Betty Ford's impact on American politics and society, we turn to presidential historian Douglas Brinkley. He's in Austin, Texas this morning. Doug, good morning to you.
Good morning.
When historians look back on the life of Betty Ford, what do you think the first thing they're going to remember is?
Well, they're going to remember her being such a pioneer in the women's movement. We remember when she became First Lady, our country was talking about the burning of bras and equal rights amendments and the need for sexual liberation. And here was a Republican First Lady who seemed quite fine with a lot of that feminist energy being ginned up largely from the Democratic left. So she had a lot of moxie. She said what was on her mind, and people will remember her as really being the perfect spouse. Pat Nixon, of course, left with Richard Nixon, and Pat Nixon was much like a Mamie Eisenhower style, old-fashioned, First Lady. With Betty Ford, you had a progressive woman who stood on her own 2 feet, and while she was devoted to her husband, Gerald Ford, she also used her mind and humor in the way that she chose to.
I remember when President Ford first took office back in '74, one commentator saying that she was quite a rascal, could be quite a rascal, and another commentator saying she broke the mold for First Ladies in many ways. Do you agree with that assessment?
I do, and I remember there's a photograph of her just dancing on the desk in the Oval Office. This was something that wasn't previously done. Certainly, Jackie Kennedy had brought in a new sense of style and flair and fashion. But Betty Ford was a truly liberated woman, and she would get into trouble some. I mean, on CBS's 60 Minutes with Morley Safer, she talked very personally about her children's life, even her children's sex lives, and got her into some hot water. And then, of course, later in life with the Betty Ford Clinic, that's going to be her lasting legacy. That has done an incredible amount of good for this country because everybody knows somebody who has a pill addiction or alcohol addiction, and she destigmatized it, and that's her chief legacy.
It's interesting. I bet there's a certain generation in this country that didn't know where the Betty Ford and the Betty Ford Center came from. They will today, hopefully, after all this news gets out. Let me ask you something about Betty Ford's last years. We didn't see her a lot. Last saw her in 2006, as Scott pointed out in his report, at her husband's funeral. What were her last years like, both personally and politically? What did she think about things?
Well, in the late 1990s, I got to spend a little time out at Rancho Mirage. I was working on a book on President Ford. What you quickly learn out there is that she's the person who really runs that whole Palm Springs area, meaning she was royalty out in that part of California, not only because of her nonstop commitment to the Betty Ford Clinic, but just she was so warm-hearted and generous to everybody around her. So she made a great presence wherever she went, and her children were deeply loyal to her, so she enjoyed being not a mom and a grandma the last 20 years of her life.
Okay. Douglas Brinkley, it's always good to talk to you. We thank you so much for your insight.
Thanks.